Do you really need a reason to throw hands? Welcome to the Triple Take. I'm Manny.
I'm Frank.
I'm always ready. I'm Joseph.
And today, we have a very interesting question that in the gaming community has been asked for many years.
Manny years?
I've asked this ever since Mortal Kombat 9.
Okay, so, well, the question is, do fighting games need to have a story? Throughout the entirety of my 25 years of living, every single fighting game that I've played has to have some type of story element inside of it that makes you do like repetitive missions, playing people you're not really going to use on ranked or anything like that. You know you're not going to play with them even locally when you're playing with your friends. You know you're not playing them, but they make you do it because it's story reasons. So that way you can unlock various things that you're probably never going to use for those characters. And to me, to answer that question with just 2 letters, no, it does not. We should not be always so focused on creating a story for something that already has a story already there. It's over. Stop. Don't rewind time so that way you can reset everything you did.
I think Mortal Kombat has the Fast and the Furious epidemic in it, bro. How long can we really take this story, bro? How far can we push it?
I mean, at least with Mortal Kombat, it's not as crazy, in my opinion, compared to Fast and the Furious. I'm just saying.
Excuse me?
Well, I am pretty versed in the English language, so I understand what I'm saying. I'm just saying it in the sense of, for a game like Mortal Kombat, you don't necessarily have to really play it for the story. Because now, which is the stupidest part of, hear me out, because the majority of people just play it to play it because it's Mortal Kombat for what it is. You know what I mean? And the words I have lived by for a good amount of my 25 plus 1 years of living, you know, I'm older than a quarter of a century now. I don't believe in violence at all, but violence is fun. You don't need to have a story to throw hands, okay? Just give like a gist of like, this is the scenario. Cool, whatever BS I gotta go through. If I'm swinging, I'm swinging. I don't really care what's going on. Let's just be real. Like, you have games like, Def Jam, right? Why are we fighting Def Jam? What's the story? My bars hit harder? No, these knuckles do. Like, what do you want me to do? But, you know, that's just my 2 cents. You don't really need a story at all. I just like Mortal Kombat.
Def Jam is a good game, though. Def Jam
It is, because I don't know how I'm remixing my thing and it goes bloop, and they get hurt. I don't know.
My main point of it is, if you're going to make a franchise, such as your Street Fighters, your Mortal Kombats, heck, I'll even tell you Injustice. The first part, if it has a story, justified. When you make like another one, and that has another story attached to it, and it just seems like a bunch of BS writing because you couldn't figure out how to continue the story, it becomes pointless. And it just makes me very frustrated at the fact that, like, you don't need to justify making this game and adding a story to it.
Because, look, my thought process is that, like, there has to be some story attached to it, right? Like, being serious right now. But it's just like, why does it have to be this comprehensive cinematic thing? Like, I feel like that's just unnecessary. I feel like there's too much money being spent on the story aspect of it that dies as soon as you finish it. Nothing further beyond that. Like, and most people that buy these games, these fighting games, don't do it for the story. Like, it's really just casual players, I guess you could say. Like, the amount of money and time they put into the story doesn't justify, like, how long you play it and stuff like that. Because, like, even, like, a single-player game, like, let's say Marvel Spider-Man, like, people complained how short it was. That thing was, like, what, almost 20 hours? Any Mortal Kombat game is, like, 3 hours. And most of the time, it's just cinematics and just fighting.
Comes Joseph with the proper estimation.
No. Frank's nose is whistling, and it is pissing me off.
I noticed, but I didn't want to say anything. You're whistling, dude.
Blow your nose and blow it hard.
Still whistling?
Now try speaking and breathing at the same time. Leave it in.
But you ever hear that one meme where, like, you can't breathe in and speak at the same time? No. Mortal Kombat was like 3 hours story, but like most of the story is like you just fighting like the CPU on easy mode, trash fights. Like, yeah, it leads into cool. The story leads into something cool, and then you're fighting just like beat him in 2 seconds. All right, continue. I feel like the actual fighting aspect of him destroys the story. Like, it's not very very like interactive. And most of the time, you don't even hear the full dialogue between the 2 people while you're fighting them because you kill them so fast. or you beat him so fast. It's like,
Sometimes.
oh, you shouldn't have done that to my child. Done. That's it. That's it. Like now you don't even know what the heck they were gonna say, and that you're never gonna know.
That's why I wanted to say it's justified for the first, for the first one to have a story added on to it. Example, Injustice. Injustice 1 is literally just based off of the comic. It's straight. That makes sense. But when you do Injustice 2, I didn't need a story to want to buy the game. It's the fact that you added in these new characters, you changed up some mechanics, and I want to play ranked. You know what I'm saying? And I want to play against my friends. That is your main marketing towards a fighting game. It shouldn't be this over-reliance on the story aspect to bring your audience back. Nobody gives a hoot.
I like Brainiac. I'm just saying.
He didn't need to be there. He didn't need to be there. No. He does not need to be there. Nobody cares. They had
Man is having diving flashbacks.
Bro. No. It's not even the diving flashbacks. It's the fact that I spent what? Injustice's story, if you just skip the cinematics, is literally maybe 3 hours, just like Mortal Kombat, because it's the same effing studio, freaking NetherRealm, and they know exactly what they're doing, but they don't know how to freaking take the story out of it. Makes no sense.
It's because I feel like they shouldn't have a whole cinematic thing like they do in Mortal Kombat and stuff. I think the way Street Fighter does it is better. Did it. Did it. I think the way they do it with the character stories, you know what I mean? When
the towers or the arcade system.
I think the character stories is enough story to fill in the gaps, or even like kind of how they do in Marvel Rivals where they have like lore. I feel like that's enough. Like for anybody that's interested enough, that's enough.
So you would.
If you want to make all this cinematic, bro, might as well just make a show.
But that's no. So like actually,
to be honest,
what you just said is a good example. Instead of making the arcade tower system, that is just pictures. Instead, use those cinematics that you were trying to create for this grand story, eliminate story, and put the cinematic inside of the end of the tower when you defeat it. That would be a lot cooler. Because then it's just a little, it's just a little, 5-minute cinematic towards what happens when you beat the tower. That would be a lot cooler.
Guess, but I kind of like the drawing, moving aspect of it. Like, I like how it's different.
But you can still keep that in. You can still keep that in. Like, it doesn't need to go away.
I suppose. I mean, depending on how you want to gear it. Because there's certain games, which their names aren't coming to mind, but where they don't necessarily have a story mode. But if you do the characters' towers, there's certain, most of the tower is random, but there are set characters at certain points to where fighting these certain characters as you go through the tower fleshes out the story from whatever character you're playing as point of view of the entire story as a whole. And if you really want to get the whole gist of the story, you literally just do the main tower mode. You just do the main tower mode per character, and you get everyone's point of view of the entire story. So if you want the full story, you technically would just be playing every character, which presumably, if you're playing a fighting game, if you're just doing towers, that's what you would normally do.
Joseph knows about doing towers, brother. The amount of time this man put in Injustice 2 towers should be documented.
Illegal.
Insane.
And
it wasn't
totally
oh no, he let it do it by itself. No, bro. He did it. He did it with his own 2 thumbs.
It's good with Brainiac.
I don't know about good, but...
Anyway, beside the point. But when it comes down to stories, the last 2 fighting games that I actually, put work and effort in, I put time in Injustice 2. I didn't put work or effort. Was Soul Calibur 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3. More so Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Because at least for Marvel vs. Capcom 3... you didn't necessarily have a story mode. You just played to play, and whatever story you got, you would just do the regular tower arcade or whatever, and you'd see each character's point of view given the scenario, right? Because you just need enough scenario, not necessarily story. You need enough scenario to be hey, what is this world, right?
I care about her.
Yeah, to get the gist of a situation. Because realistically speaking, sure, you can watch a fight. In real life, you can just watch a fight to fight, but then once you get some details in terms of what started it, right? Then you're just oh, I'm in there. You're locked in. For Marvel vs. Capcom, obviously, why am I gonna have Capcom and comic book characters together? I don't really care why. I just know it's there, and for whatever reason, it makes sense. I'm there. Because at the end of the day, a fighting game is a fighting game. Granted, the concept is simple. The actual implementation and development of such a game is very complicated because, you know, you talk about framing and development, art style, animations, the whole 9 yards, let alone like the actual mathematical data and motion capture, all that stuff to actually account for moves and abilities. And, you know, if you're playing online now, you know, internet, modern gaming, internet connection also plays a factor. Like, a lot goes into it. But that being said, you don't have to make something that's more complicated to be even more advanced and add to what's already a big effort. You know, it shouldn't be a big effort to make a good fighting game. It takes a lot of work, but you don't necessarily have to push the extra mile to be like, oh, this is the greatest story ever. No, it shouldn't necessarily be the greatest story ever. It should be just a very fun game to play, you know?
Yeah, and that's the point I feel like we're all trying to make. Like, I feel like they put too much emphasis on the actual story opposed to the gameplay. How many times have we had a sequel and we're just like, bro, this game is garbage. No characters. Gotta pay it's $1 million extra for characters that should have already been in the game, but because it doesn't fit in the story, they can't put it in the game.
No, it's the
and they gotta justify the fact that they're putting extra characters with extra story that you gotta pay for. And then they frame it as a new character that they release over a whole year for Tekken.
So, I mean, I'm giving my jab towards... Oh, man, you want to give a jab?
I want to give a right hook before, and this is me jumping the gun. We all know Marvel Tokon is coming out sometime in 2026. We all know it's being made by the people who made Guilty Gear.
I know the story.
Don't add a story. Fix the game, make it look good, make it play good, make the internet that Joseph was referring to, make it good, make it great. I don't need a story. Guess what? Make these kids read. Comic books are a thing. Make them read. They to not implement a story so I can unlock costumes for people that I'm not gonna play.
That's fair.
If I were them, I wouldn't add a story.
What gets me, what grinds my gears about NetherRealm, is you mean to tell me a crucial character to the story is somehow a pre-order DLC bonus?
Bro, I'm telling you, the stories are just a way to justify making the consumer pay more. That's all it is. They just want people to pay more money for their games. The way games have evolved, and we've talked about this, is always that they just want to remarket everything they've already done to see how much money they could get off.
I don't, and for the most part, because like I've said before, Expedition 33, like that's like the people that made that game, 100% they're all game developers. Like they publish the stuff themselves. But it's when you get game developers, and because of how the industry is structured, they have to work with publishers, and publishers obviously just want to make money. And it breaks my heart every single time because I bleed pixels, to be honest. I'm a gamer at heart.
Like Adam Sandler?
No, but that was funny. But no. It breaks my heart to see something that I've grown up to literally say it's literally a part of me, to then just have it be perverted by money, you know, and it sucks. Like, yes, I understand it's an industry, like, you gotta make money, that's fine, but a quality product should make money on its own. You don't have to literally, like, the way a lot of companies, not necessarily just in gaming, but a lot of companies scrounge every little crevice to then make that extra dollar. In a way, lower income people will try to do the best that they can in every avenue to save and make money to, like, move themselves forward. But then these companies are already forward. Why are you gonna act so greedy? Why are you gonna give me characters in a game that are obviously crucial to the story, whether they're like a pre-order bonus or not, but somehow have half of a year's worth of DLC content and be characters in the game that's already kicking my butt? Make that make sense? Where's my refund? Where's my money?
And it makes it even worse that
we've talked about all the negatives. We've talked about all the negatives, but there are some positives to where, you know, I actually like Dragon Ball's way of doing it, because Sparking Zero, granted, you know, not the best game in the world, it already knew it had a story, so it just said, all right, we're going to flip it, we're going to have 8 separate character stories, and we're going to make it first person, we're going to make it so that way you already know the Dragon Ball story, so I'm going to give you alternate scenarios for it, and that adds a little bit of intrigue into it. You might not get everybody with that, you know what I'm saying? You might not get everybody with that. But at least it adds a different element towards what they're doing, instead of adding a story that we've already seen and played in other Dragon Ball games or shows.
Yeah, but like games like that are different. Because that's, well, I guess you can consider it a fighting game if you want. I really don't care. But it's an arena fighter, so it's more interactive. There's a lot more things going on, whereas something like Mortal Kombat is just side by side. There's not much happening.
Nah.
Like,
MKX.
there's not much
I
happening.
grabbed an MKX. I grabbed that grandma to pelt you with her. A lot still happens.
No. But you can only do that once. And Dragon Ball can destroy a building 7 times. Charge and changes the weather.
You expect
There's
that
not.
grandma to
This
get
doesn't
up?
even compare. It doesn't even compare. Like, it just doesn't make sense. There's not enough interactiveness in the fights to make it justifiable to the story. The only one that actually made it justifiable a little bit was Injustice, because you could kick them across, like, off a building or something to change the environment.
I mean, that's fair.
So it's just like, nah.
But there are some games that are fighting games that do implement a story, and it's done well. Like, well, aside from a first game, a reboot being MK9, I had fun with it. I was entertained.
Okay, is that the one where Johnny Cage punches the woman in the face?
I don't remember.
The one where he's like, you know, they're all at the tower, and they all like see the top of it, and then Johnny Cage just goes, "Doom, toma," and then just runs up the tower.
No, you're talking about Armageddon. No, I'm
Okay,
talking
that's
about the game
Armageddon.
after that, which dropped before MKX. So basically, the Mortal Kombat's resurgence, because Armageddon happened, and Midway, which the company that made Mortal Kombat at the time, or was publishing them, they closed. So that's why Mortal Kombat disappeared for an extended period of time. So I think it was 2011.
Sounds about right.
NetherRealm became a thing, which all the people that made Mortal Kombat, Ed Boon primarily, leading the project, they created NetherRealm Studios, again partnered with Warner Brothers, and they rebooted the franchise with MK9, which was a mix of MK2 and 3's story, which led to MKX, and then MK11 and MK1. But at least how they remixed and rebooted themselves in MK9, I just liked how it had a semi-sense of like cartoony with the art style, but then it was still true to itself, and then it didn't want to necessarily do the same thing, but it did want to take things into a different direction. Because then MKX was loosely based / rebooted / remade version of MK4 leading to Shinnok. And then MK11 is when they kind of took it to a whole different direction when they started adding time. And then MK, they could have done the time thing a little better. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't played the DLC for that, but
So my blame on the whole like time thing, that is 100% Marvel. That is Marvel's fault that they did that. Why do I say that? Because they started messing with time in Marvel. It got popular, and then all of a sudden Mortal Kombat was just like, "Oh, it's popular. Let's do that." And then this is what we get because of that. Because if you look at MK1, their gameplay, I've been told, I had fun playing it, but then when you deep dive into it, you start to realize the mistakes of the gameplay of inside of MK1, and I guarantee their team or whatever, whoever's making this game, put 100% focus on trying to finish this story and getting the writers to make it make sense, that the gameplay took a back seat. And that's why Mortal Kombat 1 isn't as successful as it should have been. Because I remember when the marketing for it came out, everybody was hyped. Because everybody thought that this was going to be new, fresh ideas, start from the beginning, scratch, that's it. You know what I'm saying? And we ended up getting something of, okay, guys, we got to somehow make this tie into the story, and then we got to somehow make it so that way the story affects everything else around you, and da-da-da-da-da, and it just made a mess of the gameplay and threw everything on the story. And that is something that I think video game companies shouldn't do moving forward, because marketing for a fighting game, in my eyes, this is me, I could be wrong, marketing for a fighting game should be local competition, it should be tournament based, and it should be ranked online play. That's your 3 core things for a fighting game. You don't need a story. You don't need it. Co-op. Literally, the story aspect of it destroys what could be more focused on that gameplay to enhance the fighting experience for these gamers out there that love your franchise. Because Mortal Kombat, throughout everything they've ever done, their fan base still loves them. And I don't blame them. You've gone through what? 2+ decades of gaming that has like brought joy to millions of people? Am I correct in saying 2+ decades? Okay. So, people are gonna eat it up no matter what. But like doesn't mean you
No matter what.
You give them a BS story and lose the gameplay aspect of it. You lose fans that way.
The solution.
Yeah.
The solution to this type of scenario is you give me a job. You hire me to write the story. You
Hire
hire
the
let me
the
tell you
triple
fans.
take.
Let me tell you something.
No,
The
you
last-
hire Joseph. Joseph first.
No, you hire the triple take. We all
the
have
last-
ideas.
The last good Mortal Kombat was MKX. I don't care what anybody says. MK11 was garbage, and MK1 was even more garbage. Bro, MKX was the last one. Anyway, MKX, bro, was the last one. It was the last
Frank.
good gameplay-wise. The story for MK9 and MKX were okay. But it's just like, even MKX was just like, oh, you're stretching it a little bit here. I'm not going to lie. Like, you start bringing these new, like, younger kids characters. I'm like, you know what? This is getting a little bit too complicated, and it seems like you're trying to forcibly continue it. This is a good time to stop that story
I mean,
and end it right
did-
there.
At least with MKX, right? And not necessarily to continually bash Mortal Kombat, right? Because I am a
This is the
hardcore
best
Mortal
example.
Kombat fan. But it is a
Yeah.
pretty prominent
The
example.
worst example.
But at
Don't
least
even
there were
get me started
certain
about Street Fighter, bro.
there are certain story elements that were developed as a result of MK9 going into MKX. Like you get some of the which again I'm a person that just likes a grounded world, you know, no matter what the medium is. But at least in Mortal Kombat, when they started getting to that weird social political aspect between realms, such as like you have Earthrealm and their peace treaties or the Reiko Accords with Outworld, like that little like tidbit of politics, I like that sense of like flavor, right? And then if you play through like Kotal Kahn's story, you get Outworld being a whole different realm and how their hierarchy works. Like those little like tidbit of elements, and which could be fleshed out in a way that I said if you could play through each specific character's story. If you just find your main, you're like, hey, what's my main about? That's just an easy way to flesh them out. Because then opposed to fleshing out the story as a whole, instead of fleshing out the story, you flesh out your characters. Because at the end of the day, what makes a fighting game isn't necessarily the fighting itself, per se. You go off of the person you're rooting for. I mean, you look at boxing matches, it's not necessarily about the match. It's literally just this person versus this person.
It's a little bit of
But
both.
people hype up the fight more than anything before the fight actually happens.
Yeah, but like the reason why those people are hyped up is either because of a little bit about their story, but most of the time it's because of how they fight.
I think what you're more referring to is their accomplishments, how accomplished they are.
My accomplishment in
because
MKX.
nobody's gonna want to watch somebody who's not accomplished in their style of fighting.
That's
But
fair, I
the
mean,
story definitely enhances it, but it's not. It's like it's still even the.
it's
cherry
not
on top.
necessarily the main ingredient.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I feel like it shouldn't be so fleshed out like the way they do it. It's like a tidbit is enough. Like I know this might be a crazy comparison, but I think of Elden Ring. Like they don't have a story. You just kind of figure it out as you play the game. That's how a fighting game should be.
Depends on, like, realistically speaking, Elden Ring, like, as an example, you're not necessarily given a story. You're just
Nope.
thrown in the world. If you look for it, literally every article of what you collect, every character you interact with, and it's literally just the world in itself giving a story. To
Like,
which,
how much cooler would it be if like because you're fighting online and because you beat a certain character with a certain character a certain way, you get a secret cutscene.
Yeah, it's a
Kind of like how
possibility.
Dragon Ball Fighters did it. Like you wouldn't know it's there. It's all secret.
Yeah.
That makes the game fun.
And Frank bringing up MKX, my accomplishment, my like highlight memories is if I'm using Aaron Black, sprinting to dropkick Frank, or if I'm Kotal Khan, who I loved, I'm just walking up to Frank and Spartan kicking the life out of him, watching his body go wee.
Yeah. I remember as Kung Lao would dive kick him to death.
Yeah, I
Make
him
him
Frank.
His body bounce.
Yeah, I had fun
multiple
ripping him
times.
apart every time. Yeah, it's fine. And then I came back, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
So after this penis swinging contest has officially ended, what do you think about fighting games?
That's a
Do you
crazy thing
think
to say.
that they should have a story inside of them? Do you disagree with us?
What you trying
And
to say?
why?
That was a weird
Why?
way. Nah. Cooked.
Why
cooked.
do you
Restart
disagree?
this. Cooked. Restart this. The way you.
No,
nah,
he,
bro.
he
Pause.
was doing a good job.
I'm editing it, so that means I'm gonna leave it in.
You can delete my audio, but because I don't know. I don't know
let
about
Frank
that
be.
one, buddy.
What you mean by that?
Now, how do you disagree with us, or how do you agree with us? You have to comment down below on YouTube. You have to join the Discord. You can hit us up on Instagram. We're more than willing to argue with you. Bring it.
Indeed.
Throw hands, I bring peace.
Yeah, no. If you really want to start something, square up. I'm here.
Either way, I'm Manny.
Frank.
I am the one and only Joseph.
And instead of saying peace, we say violence.
Peace.
I said no peace.